to the point of you just don't have any other choices, you know?
What are some reasons why you got involved in this group?
Very simply, I have a child who's sick.
We're here to demand the President institute a national plan to get this nation through the AIDS crisis.
January 10th, 1977. I moved to New York City about 6 months ago, and today I started to write. I'm not at all sure of my reason or justification. Am I writing for myself or for a spectator? Is it a vain attempt to leave behind some legacy? This is not to say that I won't benefit from reading over it in, say, 10 or 20 years. But I will at least put up some facade of reluctance to have anyone else read it right now. Spent the whole day sitting on the porch, watching flying plastic bags in the air. I'm still amazed that I'm so easily amused by the city. So many people, so much energy. I remember the first time when I visited the city and stayed. I was simply in awe of the architecture, the graffiti, and even the garbage on the sidewalk. It was love at first sight. Well, here it is, over a month later, and I have a lot of catching up to do. Last night I went to the Ninth Circle in the village, and I fell in love with a beautiful boy. He was shy like me and had a beautiful smile, good teeth, and seemed to be new at the game. He came and stood near with his back towards me, occasionally glancing back. I tried to think of some nice things to say to him, but then someone came to talk with him, and I chickened out. The story of my life. I seemed to be suffering from my own fear of rejection. Oh, how I envy those who can just walk up to strangers and make friends. Why did I change my license plates to New York State plates? It's a New York car now. I feel I'm letting South Dakota down. Am I giving South Dakota a bad name? Fuck it. I still do like my old state. And I mourn that I won't be able to cruise with my esoteric license plates anymore. October 27th, 1978. 2 days from the next new moon. Last month I was observant and fanciful of ideas. Today I'm skipping over several books, gazing at the TV, and wandering impatiently around in search of something to preoccupy. Today is a tired day of sitting in bed and staring into the distance as I whine at obscurity. I seem to recall someone once told me that I was always smiling. I trust that must have been a long time ago. Now that I'm working in the film biz, I find I'm really not that ambitious. I'm quite content with the money, but I don't think I want to do this for life. I don't want to be a fat-bellied specialist hacking a dolly. However, it's tough to argue with the free prime rib. Perhaps I feel I can eventually become an artist. It means that I will have to have the ability and the guts to give up the money. I know if I want success or fame, I could do anything. But I could also be just as happy washing dishes if I have to. Money, 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 money. Without it, one shouldn't be sad. With it, one shouldn't be glad. David tells me today that he's got an interview back in Chicago and will be leaving the big city shortly. It suddenly dawns on me that we will be soon going our separate ways. All this time living with David, I've grown quite fond of him. I definitely treasure his friendship and value his intelligence. But all good things come to an end. For sure I'll miss him when he's gone. April 1st, 1979. I guess these books have turned out to be some want books, volume after volume. Today I want grass in the backyard, and I want to entertain company. I fancy a relationship to take care of me, and of course, I fancy enlightenment. But now I'm just writing down fillers of nothing but simply mental trivia. July 11th, 1979. Working the budget today with Daryl Ellis. Daryl and I will be moving into the PS1 studio. Will we pull through? Regardless, I'm really looking forward to this change. I'm feeling a little trapped in Brooklyn. I'm such an outsider here. At least the PS1 studio will give me something to do. May 5th, 1982. I know that I've not written for a long time, since living at PS1. Now that I've moved out of there, maybe it's time to start writing again. I did not believe that Daryl and I ended up staying in these studios for 2 years. But all good things come to an end, and I'm lucky to be working as a printer for James D's studio and homesteading in his basement. From the attic space of PS1 to the empty basement in Soho. Am I digging myself a hole in the ground? I consult the I Ching at this time for my potential success with the golden flower, for meditation and peace of mind. Am I coming 2 steps closer to an enlightened state of livelihood? What are my obstructions, and how am I to find the way? As I toss the 3 coins, I feel I'm only doing it absent-mindedly for such an important question. Such is my way at this point of time. I die without making an effort. So the last 5 days I hiked alone. Other hikers that I've met on this trip, some ahead, others behind. We all seem to be spaced apart and traveling in intervals. I guess it's the exposure to nature's elements in each step that makes walking meaningful. Perhaps our purpose in life is just to walk and let the weaknesses of the character filter past. Rain is in the forecast. Prepare and be sincere. Walk on. August 21st, 1983. Bus trip to South Dakota. We are the individual silences traveling under an invisible sky, passing through the plains of our childhood memories. We recollect the still lives lost, uncertain of our next stop. Plains of seamless horizon, flat, flat, flat. It is the equalization of the interface between the elements of earth and sky. Pictures without words, images without thoughts. The photograph of my 86-year-old grandmother. A sudden urge to write down my last visit to her nursing home. This is the way. Now I move on, continuously changing. I'm no longer this face, what I once was. July 4th, 1983. Last night I grew a little introspective, which carries over today. I guess it's an inferiority of a 30-year-old man with the seeming limitation of an 18-year-old. The future is vast and seemingly hopeless. It's a time like this when I become silent. I just got back to my basement, my refuge. Fat Cat is particularly affectionate to have me back. Security is having a warm master around. I must have gained some leg muscle because I surely lost the waist fat. The train arrived on time at Penn Station, and I walked down to Wooster Street in light rain. Walking in the city really wasn't any different than walking the long trail, except most people don't speak or acknowledge your existence in the city. Even on the train back, I hardly spoke to anyone. A passage in silence, acclimating to my return. It looks like I've inherited about $2,000 from Grandma. Thoughts of money reproducing itself to breed more money. Thoughts of spending it all on a trip. A 35mm movie camera. A nice car. Some art materials. It's too much and not enough. But it's definitely time to produce something one of these days. Since I took on this job in the darkroom, I don't seem to have any motivation to do my own work. Whenever I try to print something for myself, it seems to remind me of work. I am in the dark too much. But no doubt I must not lose my cool and take plenty of time to contemplate on any change and wait for the most propitious occasion. There will be more consultations with the I Ching. But now I've got to finish this lunch hour in the sun and get back to the darkroom to work on the next 60 prints. April 1st, 1984. This afternoon I followed a handsome youth until he lost me. A sad state for me and my two hands. The path is keeping me ejaculating, but also giving me mountains of frustration and inadequacy. I'm so lost and alone right now. I wish I knew what to do with myself. August 16th, 1986. Harmonic convergence. I woke up before dawn to walk outside to catch the rising sun. I ended up at the Hudson River piers and prevented a mugging by some lowlife against a helpless young guy. I was a little afraid of going to his aid, and then he ran off. I was worried that the lowlife would turn on me, but he didn't, and it was a happy ending. It was at least a harmonic conversion for the two of us, and I feel like I am successful in throwing off the bad. I hadn't been back to the piers since I gave away my bike, not to mention the last time I got mugged. It certainly means the piers are going downhill. October 26, 1987. A present from a dream. Being on some trip and traveling in a room filled with strangers, I noticed across from me a face of familiarity. A voice speaks. "Go ahead. It's your mother." I get up and walk over to kiss her loving face. "Can't go with you," is what I heard, and then I'm off onto the road. It's not the momentary dream to value, but rather the remembrance of her visit after I wake up. October 21st, 1988. Another dream. I ran my hands through my scalp and held it before my eyes, only to see bald patches and hair stuck all over my fingers. Poor old Mark is in the hospital. I fear for him. What most of my other friends fear these days. The worst of AIDS. I believe Mark will die in the city unless he gets a second wind. But then it may not make much difference in the long run. I can identify with his imagined plight. Certainly there are plenty of reasons to believe if he has caught the illness, I could have caught it as well. Nobody knows for sure. He, I, anyone from our circle. We could all die from a lot of things. Asthma, lupus, leukemia, chloroform. The list goes on and on. Yes, I've got to quit smoking. Quit smoking, I say. I shall finish the new pack, unless I toss it before that. May 30th, 1990. The 2 weeks of waiting for the HIV test result were the worst. After the health worker read to me the report from the lab that it was positive, it was practically a relief. I certainly woke up this morning feeling easier than the other mornings. After all, I probably had the virus for 8 years or more. Now I'm afraid of dropping this bombshell to Dad. I don't like to add that grief to his life. But, sorry, Pop. It'll be a tough letter for you to read before long. July 6, 1990. The visit with Dad went okay. He doesn't want to share my HIV status with anyone. I'm somewhat irked that he sees it as a secret. My relatives years from now will probably view my death with as much interest as I do my great-uncle Albert's death from influenza in 1918. At least they said it was the flu. Who knows? They'll probably say something similar about me. Cancer. He died of cancer. Well, for the record, I've just come out of the closet both sexually and medically with my relatives, friends, and you, my readers. July 23rd, 1990. It's been some weeks since the HIV revelation, and I'm feeling so far so good. I've given up coffee and alcohol. I've also been eating better and taking vitamins. This weekend I'll go to the Catskill Woods to give up the insidious tobacco and to videotape the great outdoors again. I'm also starting to go to ACT UP meetings on Monday nights. God, I hope I don't die of sainthood.
40 million infected people is a fucking plague. And nobody acts as it is, as if it is. Nobody here either. Nobody in this hospital. Nobody in this city. Nobody in this world. 40 million people is a fucking plague.
We're sitting here because we are the people who are living with this disease. I have been living with this disease for 11 years. And throughout that entire 11 years of Reagan and Bush administrations, we have seen nothing done. We do not see the funding that we need for treatment and for care for people with AIDS. We are demanding from George Bush that he give us the resources that we need, that we get the money, that he provide the leadership, that he take action to make sure that people with AIDS have the health care that they need, have the housing that they need, that the research on the drug takes place, and that people of color and women are included in drug testing and treatment. That is not happening now. That is why we are here. And George Bush had the nerve to say that when we went to Kenny Bunkport and demanded action from him, that, well, I feel compassion for those unemployed people because they have families. I want George Bush to know we have families too. Yeah!
We need something about finding a cure now. There are too many people that are dying every day of this illness with a government that has absolutely no interest in helping these people get better.
What is some reasons why you got involved in this group?
Very simply, I have a child who's sick, and there is nothing worse than a parent having to look and see at a sick child where he's getting no help whatsoever.
We're here to demand action. We're here to demand that President Bush institute a national plan to get this nation through the AIDS crisis. At the moment, there is no plan. There is no organization. There is nothing. We're here to demand not more money. We're here to demand leadership.
I have AIDS, and the blood is to show that everyone's living with AIDS. Barbara Bush is living with AIDS, Millie's living with AIDS, George is living with AIDS, everybody. And we're sick and tired, don't really want to have to be here, but we have no choice.
I'm walking because I lost a nephew to AIDS last year.
I'm also here because too many friends have died.
I'm here because I'm an ex-prisoner, and I'm also HIV infected, and I learned that status while being confined. And because I want adequate health care for prisoners that I left there, and it shouldn't be a death sentence that they have HIV. I don't want them harassed or isolated as a result of that. I want education for them, peer education, which includes condom distribution and dental dam distribution. I want Cuomo to acknowledge that he needs that there and to provide it for them, because the prisoners themselves are taking the initiative to try to change things and are being harassed and penalized as a result of that. I want them to let out terminally ill individuals due to HIV, because that's like double jeopardy, and it becomes a death sentence for those individuals. And if they pose no threat to society, let them out and let them die in dignity in hospitals or in community that they belong to. And I want them to acknowledge that and to change that.
We are protesting the violations of human rights of sex workers around the world. We are protesting here at this Congress because the organizers of this Congress have such a narrow range of human rights issues that are being addressed. Human rights for sex workers are nowhere to be found on the program. Sex workers are only seen as a source of the AIDS epidemic. Sex money does not carry AIDS. If you're dead law.
I think the time for passive action is over. I think the time for lobbying is over. I think the time for leather writing is over. I think it's time to fill up the jails and get really angry and scare these people a little bit. And maybe they'll do something then.
It gets to the point of what, you just don't have any other choices, you know? I mean, they try everything else and nobody listens. Maybe they'll listen to that, I don't know. But the government is forcing people into situations where they have nothing to lose. You know, and I'll tell you what, if I had AIDS and I was dying, I would do everything these people are doing and maybe more if I could think of something else.
dead! Where was George? 150,000 dead! Where was George? 150,000 dead! Where was George?
History will recall Reagan and Bush did nothing at all. History will recall Reagan and Bush did nothing at all. George Bush, you can't hide. We charge you in genocide. George Bush, you can't hide. We charge you in genocide. George Bush, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
Bring the dead to your door. We won't take it anymore. Bring the dead to your door. We won't take it anymore.
Support the AIDS Cure Project, the bill in Congress to find a cure for AIDS. Support the AIDS Cure Project, the bill in Congress to find a cure for AIDS.
Doing an excellent job with that.
Fight back!
issues.
Investigations.
Positive.
Despite the heroic efforts of countless individuals, community groups, and organizations, more people were infected with HIV in the past year than ever before. And despite the best efforts of health workers and researchers, more people than ever died an untimely death because of AIDS. Holding the International AIDS Conference here in Yokohama could not be more timely. HIV and AIDS are challenging this continent as never before. Enormous population movements, the inferior status of women, and a reluctance to acknowledge the huge threat posed by AIDS make many Asian countries very vulnerable. In the past 12 months, we estimate that another 3 million men, women, and children have been infected with HIV. The cumulative total stood at around 14 million a year ago. It now exceeds 17 million. HIV marches on. No wonder our world is filled with skeptics. If we know so much about preventing AIDS, why is the epidemic continuing to expand? What should be the priorities of our global response?
And that means that we cannot be lectured at, but we need to be spoken to and listened to. And then if we can foster some kind of self-confidence in young people, then we would feel strong enough to make the decisions.
See, the whole thing about health education is not really telling people what to do. It's really giving people the skills that they need to make a decision that they can feel comfortable with. Because no matter what anyone tells you, you really can't tell a 16-year-old what to do. You can ground that person, but sooner or later that person's going to come out of their room and they're going to be going to school or they're going to be on the street. So basically you want to make sure that they have the skills that they need to make the choices.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, send Bush Guantanamo. Hey, hey, ho, ho, send Bush Guantanamo.
This is a discrimination against the Asian people. When you HIV positive, you are not committed a crime.
A number of us just got back from Guantanamo a couple of weeks ago, where we visited the around 280 people who are still there. People who have not been brought into the United States because their medical condition hasn't deteriorated to the point yet where they need urgent medical care here. But, you know, we have to report that their conditions in the camp are truly dreadful. It's the saddest thing that most of us had ever seen. The words concentration camp immediately came to mind when we walked in and saw these 280 people, kids, families, gathered under military supervision in an airplane hangar. You know, they're desperate because their medical situation is deteriorating and they don't trust their doctors or their medical care. And more fundamentally because they feel that the world has forgotten that they're there and that basically anything can be done to them and they have absolutely no recourse.
HIV is not a crime. Why are Haitians doing time? HIV is not a crime. Why are Haitians doing time? HIV is not a crime. Why are Haitians doing time?
And I really have problems in trying to separate that out from, you know, as I say, the gay white majority does. Because what that does is it disenfranchises us from our people. I think it's very important to accept our roles as healers, counselors, spiritual leaders within our communities. Two-Spirit people have always had those roles in our communities, and in times of crisis they've always come forward to help their people.
I'm a Native American lesbian. I was diagnosed in November of '86 with AIDS-related condition, and then in November of '87 I was diagnosed with AIDS and almost died, and Western medicine gave me 6 weeks to live, and I turned really in a major way to traditional native resources and began a 3-year healing process.
Every time an attempt is made to regulate the pharmaceutical industry in America, the pharmaceutical industry threatens that they will have to completely close down shop. It will destroy their business. It will destroy the discovery of essential scientific biological research that has saved lives, and they cannot in any way let that happen. And that is still true to this day. And the example we have of that is pharmaceuticals won't open their books to discuss the pricing of life-saving therapies. And as recently as the Pryor's investigation, the Democrat from Arkansas, investigations in the Committee on Aging into price gouging on drugs.
Giuliani is now mayor of the city with the largest AIDS caseload in the United States. He went through an entire campaign without saying the word AIDS. We need him to make AIDS a priority in his administration, and it's clear that unless we make him, he will not make it a priority. I'm afraid that he doesn't care.
I believe he doesn't understand the fabric of New York City. He doesn't understand the racial breakdown. He definitely doesn't understand gay and lesbian issues, and he has no interest in understanding them. That's my fear, you know.
Rudy Giuliani is our mayor now, and we are worried about how he's going to handle this crisis. He hasn't uttered the word AIDS.
I'm here because New York City is the epicenter of the AIDS epidemic, and we have a government in the city that's just not doing enough, and we need to get the new mayor on his first day of office to understand that people are dying, and if he does not wake up and understand that AIDS is his first focus, then we need to give him a loud and crying wake-up call.
It is February 5th, 1997. And I just, for the first time, took some antiviral medicine. After seeing the doctor today and finding out my T cells are staying down to the 40 to 60 range, and my viral load has increased to the 100,000 range. So it's time to get my head out of the hole in the ground and have some faith with medicine, I guess. It's either that or a can of gasoline. So, here goes. Drugs, good. Little pills. Twice a day on a full stomach. Little pills twice a day with food. My third protease inhibitor, Aviv, will be prescribed in a couple weeks because these two drugs can give me nausea for the first number of weeks. So I guess the doctor wants to see if I live long enough on these two, and then he'll prescribe the third Aviv, the protease inhibitor, the almighty protease inhibitor. And then I'll be on the official magic medicine 3-drug cocktail protease inhibitor. Gee, I guess I'll be a manageable disease.
My eyes welled up with more tears than I can count. I thought of the buildings that are no longer there. It is true that tragedies are worse on the second day. Today, I'm totally mournful. No cars or people can come below 14th Street right now. Police checkpoints have been set up at all the major intersections. The streets are completely empty and silent, except for the sounds of the F-16 fighter jets circling in the sky. Cable TV was on the CNN bottom, scrolling past, read, Reverend Jerry Falwell says he blames pagans, abortionists, feminists, gays, and lesbians for bringing on the terrorist attacks on New York and Washington. Bush visited town today. There must have been 24 sorties of fighter jets overhead. I feel like we're living in a world between the military and the religious fundamentalists. Candles were held all across Canal Street. I wonder how many of those older Chinese went through events like the Nanking Massacre during the Second World War. And there must have been as many Vietnamese here who lived through the bombings there. Posters of the missing on bus stops, memorial candles on street corners, endless flags flying in Chinatown and Little Italy, trucks with debris driving past, World Trade Center postcards, all sold out. The surreal has become normal. All my senses are peaking, except for no appetite or sex drive. I sense a tired step in my walk, and I fear I'll be feeling this way for as long as downtown is still smoking. But then I saw this older Asian woman giving food to the homeless. Somehow, within the sadness, there is an incredible beauty and goodness. I could not dream of leaving the city. I was born and raised in the northern Great Plains. When I came to New York in 1976, I fell in love with the city and stayed. When I tested positive for HIV antibodies in 1990, I turned towards activism to learn all I could. What AIDS activism had taught me, fundamentally, was self-empowerment. We are not passive participants in this plague. I'm supposed to talk about myself, and I'm not sure how to pull it off. Am I more than a virus? I guess not. I am not the face of AIDS. I'm not dead yet. But I do have enough of an imagination to realize that if I'm not run over by a car, or dead by a heart attack, or stabbed by some random violence against queers, I can imagine myself a collection of infections, emaciated, gray-skinned, feeble, blind. I don't like this picture. And how many of my activist friends are still around? Who hasn't been burned out yet? Is there anyone else still fighting AIDS? We have thugs controlling the city, the state, and the whole freaking country. And what about the rest of the world in Asia and Africa? We are in worse shape than we've ever been, and things are only getting worse. Instead of silence equals death, people say celebration. Television gives us will and grace and queer eyes for the straight guy. But you never hear anyone utter the word unless it's on World AIDS Day. There is no community anymore, and that's what we're left with. And because of this lack of community, ACT UP is irrelevant and dead in the water. Activists have turned careerists, and community organizations are self-perpetuating corporations. They negotiate with drug companies, selling out, providing careers and salaries, taking your money, giving lip service. And maybe if you're lucky, you get a free lunch. Film festivals have AIDS retrospectives, as if the fight against AIDS is all over. People who still care are a dying breed. I can't celebrate. I don't feel part of any community. I think it'll be a very long time before enough people will be mobilized to bring about any kind of change. I've probably been infected with HIV for almost 23 years. With the new medications, I've become supposedly a manageable disease. But I think my time is about to run out. I couldn't take much illness or hospitalization. I can see myself either alone in some hole in the woods and disappearing, or pouring a can of gasoline on myself and setting it on fire in front of some governmental building, cathedral, or bureaucrat's house. Date unknown. Some years since the last entry. Young man trailing through the pathless woods. Blurry trees lie across like an impressionist painting. In his indifference, the young man indulges in spotted red mushrooms. He sees, he wanders, and ends up getting lost in the big city. Young man catches mortal disease and weakens. In the end, he returns to the woods and falls asleep while his hair grows long.